The story begins with a man named Jack who cycles through the jungle to get home. When he arrives, he finds his beautiful wife Rosie sitting on the stairs staring at him. Jack looks at her and asks, "What's wrong?" Rosie smiles and walks away, heading to her room. Later, Jack and Rosie drop their daughter Trixie off with a babysitter before heading to a party. Rosie gets ready, and Jack lovingly puts on his shoes. Their connection seems full of deep love, but the truth is far from it, and we're about to find out why. At the party, everything seems fine as they mingle with friends, until a guy named John shows up. Rosie greets him and heads over to chat. Jack quietly watches from the side. Rosie and John eventually slip outside, where they share a kiss. Jack sees this through the window but doesn't say a word. He already knows about his wife's affairs. It's clear that their toxic relationship has been known by their friends for a while. Jack's friend Mary pulls him aside and asks, "You know what's going on, but why do you still stay in this relationship?" Jack calmly replies, "Rosie can do whatever she wants with her life. I don't have an issue with it. If I wanted to, I could end this marriage and she knows it. But I love her deeply, and I don't want to break up my family. One day, I'm sure she'll understand my love." Later, Jack heads to the bar for a drink, and John comes up to him. With a smirk, John says, "I just want to thank you for your hospitality. I've seen how most husbands get jealous of their wives, but you're different. You're amazing." Jack responds, "Well, earlier, Rosie had a boyfriend named Martin. People say he suddenly disappeared, but the truth is, I killed him." Hearing this, John gets a bit scared and says to Jack, "You're joking, right?" Jack replies, "It all depends on how you take this information." John's face immediately drops, and he quickly excuses himself and leaves the party. Rosie tries to stop him, but John makes an excuse and leaves anyway. On the way home, Rosie asks, "What did you say to John that made him leave so suddenly?" Jack lies, "I didn't say anything that would make him leave the party." The scene shifts to Jack dropping Trixie off at school. On his way out, he runs into a friend who jokingly asks, "So, are you killing people now? Everyone's talking about it." Jack laughs and says, "Maybe John started all that. I was just messing with him, but I guess he really got scared." Later, Jack's other friends ask him the same thing. Jack just laughs it off, telling them it was all a joke. But when Rosie finds out that Jack tried to scare John by mentioning Martin's name, she gets furious. She says, "You shouldn't have done that. First you pushed Martin away and now John too." Jack defends himself. "It was just a joke," but Rosie refuses to believe him. Rosie says, "I'm calling John over for dinner tonight. You'll have to apologize to him." Later that evening, John arrives for dinner and everyone sits down to eat. Now you might find this situation pretty awkward. How is it possible for such a caring husband to handle his wife's affair so calmly? But John keeps himself composed. After dinner, Rosie tells their daughter Trixie, "Tonight your dad will tuck you in and tell you a story." Rosie says this because she wants some time alone with John. Jack understands what's going on, but he doesn't say anything. He puts Trixie to bed and then heads downstairs. When Jack walks into the living room, he sees how cozy Rosie and John are. Jealousy starts to build up inside him. In frustration, he heads to the kitchen and smashes a plate. The sound echoes through the house. Rosie, hearing the crash, goes into another room and asks for another drink for John. Jack brings it to him, but John still seems uneasy about the murder joke. He says, "Don't you think you should apologize to me for that joke about murder?" Jack turns to him, his tone changing. "Actually, that wasn't a joke. I really hit him on the head and finished the job. He won't be coming back even if you apologize." John, completely freaked out, bolts from the house in fear. But the real question is, was Jack's joke true, or was it just a way to scare John? We'll find out soon enough. The next scene shows Jack and his family at a party with many of their friends. Jack meets a writer named Mark, who is Kaylee's husband. Kaylee is Jack's best friend and often travels outside the city. The two men chat and discuss personal topics. Mark asks Jack, "What do you do for a living?" Jack replies, "I'm retired now, but I still do some work here and there. Mostly I spend my time cycling." Rosie chimes in, "Jack has actually developed a microchip, something that military people can use in their drone systems to hit targets with precision." The guests at the party are shocked to learn that Jack isn't just a genius engineer, but also a successful, wealthy man. Despite all of this, there's still a sadness in Jack's life, because as we know, a loyal wife can make a man feel truly rich. The party continues with everyone enjoying themselves, and Jack starts dancing with his best friend Kaylee. Rosie becomes incredibly jealous when she sees Jack's reaction, and a few days later we see Trixie playing with some school friends. Meanwhile, Jack receives a call from the bank, informing him that Rosie has recently transferred $3,000 to another account. When he presses for more details, he learns the money was sent to a guy named Charlie, a live pianist. Jack immediately realizes that Rosie has moved on and found a new boyfriend now that John is out of the picture. Determined to learn more about Charlie, Jack later visits a restaurant where there's a live piano session. To his surprise, he finds Rosie sitting there, listening intently to the piano music. Jack quickly understands that Charlie is the new guy in her life. From this point, Rosie begins coming home later and later, and it's clear that her relationship with Charlie is deepening. Jack feels the jealousy, but this time he keeps quiet about it. One night, Rosie doesn't come home at all. The next morning, when she finally returns, Jack confronts her, filled with anger. "Where were you you all night?" he demands. "You have a family and a 6-year-old daughter. And why did you transfer so much money to this guy Charlie?" Rosie doesn't respond to any of Jack's questions. Instead, she taunts him, knowing full well that he's jealous. She understands that no matter what she does, Jack won't leave her. She plays on his emotions and takes full advantage of his insecurity. At a pool party at Miles's house, Rosie invites Charlie. As soon as he arrives, she sticks by his side. After introducing him to everyone, Charlie starts playing the piano, and Rosie dances joyfully with the others. Jack, however, is uncomfortable with all of this, but says nothing. Later, Rosie calls Charlie her new friend and introduces him to Jack. They exchange a few words, but Jack is clearly not happy about it. Later that night, Jack looks for Rosie. Inside the house, he quietly observes as Rosie and Charlie exit a room together. Jack immediately understands what they were up to. He watches as they frolic in the pool, clearly enjoying each other's company. Jack is furious but feels helpless. Then suddenly it starts to rain, and everyone rushes back inside. After a while, the group is inside, enjoying food and drinks, but then Rosie runs out screaming as she finds Charlie's lifeless body floating in the pool. Everyone rushes to pull Charlie out and attempt CPR, but it's too late. Charlie is already dead. Panic sets in as no one knows what happened. The police arrive to investigate Charlie's death and begin questioning everyone at the party. Rosie, in a fit of rage, screams that Jack killed Charlie. She accuses him of being responsible, blaming their strained relationship as the motive. However, Jack's friends quickly step in to defend him. One of them tells the officers, "That's not possible. When the rain started, Jack came inside with the rest of us, so the suspicion on Jack doesn't seem justified." After the police find no evidence linking Jack to Charlie's death, they take him to another room for a brief interrogation. However, this incident pushes Rosie even further away from Jack. A few days later, we see Jack cycling, replaying the moment over and over in his mind, how he drowned Charlie, and wondering what Rosie and Charlie might have been doing together. His thoughts consume him with jealousy and worry. It's clear now that Jack was the one who killed Charlie in a fit of rage. No one knows the true nature of Jack's actions, though, and his dark side remains hidden. He's a man willing to kill his wife's lovers when he's pushed too far. Later, Jack takes his daughter to school. As he's leaving, his friend Kelly approaches him, revealing something unsettling. "I think you should know Rosie came over to our house recently," she says. "She hired a private detective through my husband Mark. After Charlie's death, she's been suspecting you." This news worries Jack, but it also sparks a plan. He invites Kelly and Mark to dinner, and after some conversation, he takes Mark into another room where he keeps his snails. Jack tells Mark to stop following him or listening to his wife's suspicions. He asks bluntly, "You were there that night. Do you think I killed Charlie?" Mark doesn't respond, but deep down, he's intrigued by Jack. Mark, a writer, sees the dark potential in Jack's life and wants to write a story that could make him famous. He's drawn to Jack's personal drama, but how far will his curiosity take him? As the story moves forward, Jack discovers that Rosie has moved on again, this time with a man named Tony, a former college friend. Jack spots them together, and soon Tony comes over to the house to meet Rosie. Jack observes everything quietly, fully aware of the situation. Later, they have dinner together, but when Tony gets a chance, he slips away to Rosie's room where they begin to get intimate. Jack watches from a distance, and Rosie catches him in the act. This creates an awkward moment, but the next day, Jack can't hold back. He follows Tony with his car, pulling up in front of him and casually saying, "Hey, you're here. Rosie's been trying to reach you. Maybe you've got something to talk about. Let me give you a ride." Tony, eager to meet Rosie, gets into Jack's car, but instead of driving him to Rosie, Jack takes him deep into the jungle, a secluded place where no one can hear or help him. Once they arrive, Tony gets out of the car and asks, "What are we doing here?" Before Tony can react, Jack picks up a stone and hits him in the head. Tony, realizing something is wrong, Jack grabs a larger stone and swings it at Tony, hitting him back. As Tony falls into the pit, he dies instantly. Jack approaches the body to confirm that he's dead. He ties stones to Tony's lifeless body, preparing to dispose of it. While doing this, Jack finds Tony's wallet and decides to keep it as a memento. He takes it to the river and sinks it, ensuring that no one will ever find Tony's body. The next day, Rosie and Trixie are getting ready for a picnic. Jack returns home and Rosie asks, "Do you want to come with us?" Jack agrees and asks where they're going. Trixie answers, "We're just going to a forest nearby." In the next scene, we see them in the same area where Jack had secretly buried Tony's body near the river. While they talk, Rosie is happy and in a cheerful mood, but Jack can't shake the guilt he's feeling. Meanwhile, Trixie is playing with the family dog, exploring the surrounding jungle. Rosie turns to Jack and asks, "Why do you still want to stay with me? Everyone else has left me." Jack responds romantically, "I don't know, but I just want to spend my whole life with you." His words seem to melt Rosie's heart and they grow closer. Just then, Trixie calls out for her dad, so Jack walks over to her. Trixie tells Jack that her dog won't move from the riverbank. When Jack looks toward the river, he notices that Tony's body is now visible. Anyone who passes by could easily see it, so Jack quickly comes up with an excuse and insists that they leave. Rosie says she forgot her scarf by the river, and Jack tells her not to worry. He promises to return the next day to grab it, all while planning to fix the body and make sure it's hidden again. Back at home, Jack asks Rosie if Tony has called her. She replies, "No, Tony hasn't been in touch for 2 days. Maybe he's left." like the others. After that, Rosie hugs Jack and asks, "Will you sleep in my room tonight?" They had been sleeping separately for a while, but this time they share a moment of intimacy. They grow close and start romancing. The next morning, Jack grabs his bike and heads back to the spot where he buried Tony. Once there, he tries to push Tony's body into the water with a stick, hoping to hide it once and for all. Rosie goes to Jack's room and, after some searching, finds Tony's wallet. It dawns on her that Jack has killed Tony. Meanwhile, Jack is at the river, still trying to dispose of Tony's body when Mark suddenly appears and asks, "What are you doing here?" Jack, nervous, tries to cover up, but Mark senses something is wrong. As he steps forward, he sees Tony's body and fear overtakes him. Mark quickly jumps into his car and speeds away. Jack, fearing Mark will go to the police, hops on his bike and follows. Mark drives recklessly, trying to escape, but Jack manages to take a shortcut, getting ahead of him. As he blocks Mark's path, Mark loses control of the car, and it crashes into the river, killing him instantly. Meanwhile, Rosie decides to leave Jack, packing up her things with Trixie. But as Rosie begins to prepare to leave, Trixie throws all the packed belongings into the pool. Surprised, Rosie asks her daughter, "What are you doing?" Trixie replies, "We're not leaving, Dad." This strikes Rosie deeply, and she realizes that if she leaves, her family will be torn apart. She understands that Jack's actions are a result of his deep love and concern for their family. With this realization, Rosie decides to stay. She also burns Tony's wallet, knowing it could be crucial evidence. The story ends with the opening scene. Jack returns home cycling through the jungle. Rosie is sitting on the stairs watching him. When Jack asks, "What happened?" Rosie smiles faintly and walks off to her room without saying a word. I hope you enjoyed this story. Let's meet again with another intriguing tale. And most important thing, don't forget to subscribe.